What's up everybody, welcome back to Meta Gaming. My name is Roland, this is the best channel that nobody watches except a few special people like yourselves, and today we're gonna be talking about Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls was released in February 2009 and later on remade in 2020 to launch alongside the new PlayStation, and it kickstarted a whole new genre in gaming. Souls-like games, although never a mainstream series, has recently gained a lot of popularity, especially after the launch of Elden Ring. But back then, it was more of a niche thing that appealed to hardcore gamers looking for a good challenge and a great amount of immersiveness. I myself never had the chance to really dig into the fromsoftware Souls games, except Elden Ring recently, mainly due to time constraints, but I finally managed to play Demon's Souls for the first time, from start to finish, and now here I am, giving you my thoughts about it. The main question of this video is it still worth your time, or maybe you should move on to maybe some newer games in this category. For this review I played the remake on PlayStation 5, and although there are obvious visual upgrades, the game itself mostly stayed the same, without any major modifications to its mechanics or gameplay. Straight out of the gate, I wanna say this game looks fantastic, and the visuals enhance the experience quite a lot, but that being said, games in this genre are never about graphics. They're more about pain, the pain of learning from your mistakes and then becoming more confident with each death. Facing the challenges put in front of you with a new set of eyes and the keenness to test out new strategies of fighting enemies and overcoming them. That is, if you don't use a guide, of course. Talking about guides, I strongly recommend you play this game without using one. Discovering the mechanics, details, enemy patterns, and the levels is quite a lot of fun, and a lot of the times using guides will spoil that fun in my humble opinion, and you will lose some of the experience that the game has to offer. Of course, looking up some items here and there to better understand their uses is a wise option, but looking up boss fight guides water down the satisfaction that you will have when you eventually beat that said boss. The game has 5 stages, containing 3 levels each with one exception. The first stage contains 4 levels, yes. Passing the first level of a stage will gain you access to the next one, so on and so forth. Now, one of the tricky parts that players are confronted with at the start is to choose the proper stage, as you can start in any order you wish, but you will have to be prepared to die a lot if you start the stages that have a higher level of difficulty. This is where a guide might come in handy. And although I said earlier that using a guide will water down the experience, if you are somebody that has a few hours of gaming in a week, but you would still like to give this game a go without losing a lot of time figuring out the proper order, then yes, maybe a guide would be a decent idea. Otherwise, if you have a decent amount of time to play games without long break periods between sessions, then I would say forget about guides and get going without it. Trial by fire, baby. I love the atmosphere in this game. Its mostly medieval setting hooked me from the start, and the great diversity in level design makes the game feel fresh even after a few good hours of playing it. Exploring, discovering, and figuring out the maps has always piqued my interest, and with a few exceptions, I'd say that was one of the main things that I loved about the game. Now that being said, not every level is good. Yes, I'm looking at you, Swamp of Sorrow, you bastard. Actually, I'd say most of the 5th stage is kind of wonky for me. I didn't like it. I actually despise it. It made the game feel like a drag in those sections, in my humble opinion, making me feel like I'm wasting time playing it. To the point where, in the Swamp of Sorrow, I think I stopped playing it. I just put down the controller, stopped the PlayStation for like, I think it was 4 or 5 times, and I said I'm not gonna touch this game again, but I always came back, baby. What made me come back? Well, I wanted to see everything the game has to offer, and I can safely say I'm very happy about my decision to push on and finish the game without stopping close to the end just because of a bad level or two. And by the way, after doing some research on the matter, I've seen a lot of people complain about the Swamp of Sorrow. I think it's level design. It also, if you don't have a certain ring, then you will be slower in the water as you walk, but overall just the setting and the level design is just bad. But at least I think the developers named that level perfectly. It is a Swamp of Sorrow. The immersiveness that this game offered me was greatly appreciated, especially because I've had a very busy year, and whenever I would have some time to play Demon's Souls, I would forget about everything, and I would turn into the small kid that I once was, sitting in front of my parents' TV playing Duck Hunter or It's me, Mario! Okay, maybe I'll cut that one out. Playing Mario on the Nintendo. I also believe that the immersiveness comes from the fact that you have to be focused when you play this game. and any other Souls-like game for that matter. You cannot half-ass this, because if you do, you will die a lot, and progress will be slow and possibly frustrating. This is as far as you can get from a Zen-like game, okay? The gameplay is extremely satisfying, and although this is a relatively hard game, I never felt like it was unfair, with a few small exceptions, and I'll talk about that later. And the great part about it is that if I felt like I was getting overwhelmed by the enemies, I would do a little bit of grinding, you know, kill enemies from other levels, easier levels that I've already been through, level up, and then come back and face those bad boys all over again. And a lot of the times, this is what would happen. I would be like Vegeta in the Dragon Ball Z series, when he would first walk into the hyperbolic time chamber, training, he comes out, he's buffed, he's stronger than ever, and then he gets his ass handed to him all over again. That's me in Demon Souls. I would grind some, I would level up, and I would be like, oh, okay, I'm ready to go. And then I would go and I would die again, but eventually, of course, you succeed, and that is very satisfying. I think that's the main satisfaction and the main joy that players get from Demon Souls and from the Souls-like games in general. Alongside the level designs, the boss fights and aesthetics were also quite diverse and a joy to experience. Sometimes I'm amazed by the level of imagination that goes into these games, and this is no exception to that rule. Now, it's pretty obvious at this point in time that I've enjoyed playing this game, right? But it's not quite all sunshine and rainbows, ladies and gentlemen, as I always say. The game has a world tendency mechanism, also a character tendency mechanism. What is this? Well, it's kind of hard to say, but I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna quote here. When you play, both character tendency and world tendency start off at neutral. Depending on your actions, they can shift to white or black. Good deeds make it go white, while bad deeds make it go black. Pretty straightforward, right? But of course, it isn't as simple as being either black or white, as there are shades along the way that determine the level of the tendency's effects. So if you're just a little evil, enemies will only be a little more difficult to take down. Okay? Whereas if you're like really bad, well, then you've gone and made an already brutally difficult game even harder. So go at it if that's what you enjoy. There's more detail to this mechanic actually. I really didn't like it. I really didn't like it, and to my knowledge, FromSoftware didn't use it in any other Souls games after this one, so maybe that shows us that maybe they weren't very keen on implementing it in other games either. The thing that I hated most about it is that in some of the levels, it takes away some of the access that you can have to certain parts of the map. That was a pain in the butt cheek, and if you wanted to gain access, you would have to go through a few steps that really made me feel like it was more of a drag, and therefore I've never bothered with it. That mechanism, I just don't like. The world tendency, the character tendency is just not for me. I have a feeling that's made more to people that would like to play New Game Plus, would like to replay the game, and then you can start having fun with the tendencies, but I'm not that type of guy. Also, of course, there's a New Game Plus where you keep everything that you have and the opponents get a little bit tougher. The storyline is non-existent, and that's okay, because like with the graphics that I've talked about before, you don't play a Souls-like game for its graphics or for its story. Of course, it only gets enhanced if you have a great story and great graphics, but that's not why you play these games. There's a lot of fan theories out there regarding the story of this game and possible ties to other FromSoftware games, but at the end of the day, it's unclear, and that's fine. There's another couple of things that bothered me a little bit throughout playing this, namely the hitboxes that your character has, which sometimes they feel more like recommendations instead of being an exact, precise indication of where you might get hit. It's not always 100% clear, and that can get frustrating, but it doesn't get in the way of the gameplay that much. Also, there's clunky camera angles in tight spaces which can get you killed in certain spots, and then you can get infuriated by it. Again, it's not a game breaker, but it's there. The lock-on mechanic, or mechanism, whatever you want to call it, can also get quite annoying every now and then. Multiple times I wanted to lock on to an oncoming enemy that was relatively close to me, okay, so it wasn't like it's a very far enemy that's still far away. I would push the pad associated with that mechanism, and then my character would just turn around and do a 180-degree turn, because it's the same button, I guess. That was very annoying at times. It didn't happen a lot. I'll give the game that. It didn't happen a lot, and I don't remember dying because of it. So in conclusion, is it still worth your time? Fuck yeah. This game has a lot to offer to any gamer interested in playing it. It's where it all started, and it looks great. And even if you play the 2009 version, for example, if you emulate it on a PC, it still looks pretty good. The emulated version looks, I've checked some clips online, and it looks really good, because, you know, not everybody has a PlayStation 5. Realistically, you won't get a PlayStation 5 just to play Demon's Souls, right? So if the emulated version is the only option that you have, then I'd say go for it. Obviously, the PlayStation 5 version is pretty cool. I think that's the best way to play the game. But the 2009 version is still good. The core mechanics are still there. There are no major changes gameplay-wise, so it still offers a good experience. That's gonna be it for today, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed what you just saw, and maybe it even helped some of you make a decision. If you've reached this point of the video, I sincerely thank you, and maybe propose that you subscribe to the channel if you don't already are a subscriber. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, which I'm gonna start doing again, because I have a little bit more time in my schedule, then stick around and you will get them. Also, if you like some Total War action, I'm always here for that. But videos such as this, I'm gonna try to make at least one a month, which might sound very, very little to you, but yeah, time is very limited. And also, it is a process making a video like this. I enjoy the process very much, and I don't want to rush it. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Until then, stay safe, stay clean, and always stay strong.